Oh boy, my friends, has it been a hot minute since we had a regular podcast episode. I just looked at the calendar. This is the 10th week, for me anyway, of staying at home. I have not been in a single store since March 15th, March 16th, somewhere around there. I decided it was time to get back to business as usual. So stick around and I hope you'll enjoy today's episode.
You're listening to the Wellness Simplified podcast. Simple wellness tips to help you improve your life without turning it upside down. With your host, award-winning fitness instructor, nutrition coach, and wellness expert, Suzi Fevens.
Well, welcome back to the podcast. Yes, it's been a little while since we had any regular episodes here. We haven't had any episode at all the last few weeks. I just decided to cut myself a little bit of slack. Those of you who follow me, especially on Facebook or have been doing any of my virtual classes, will know I've been staying pretty busy, and sometimes things just have to be cut to save one's sanity, and the podcast was that for a couple weeks. And prior to that, we were just doing some meditations when the whole lockdown came about. I didn't feel like it was appropriate for me to come on and just talk nonsense, really. It just didn't feel right. So I shared meditations for a little while, and I think that was a great resource for people. At least I hope it was. But now I'm sort of feeling like it's time that at least the podcast gets back to usual. I mean, life is not going to be normal for a while, unfortunately, if ever, but at least there are some things that we can make feel a bit more normal, and I feel like this podcast is one of them. So especially on my Instagram account and in my Facebook group, I've made a statement that I am not talking about the pandemic because I want to provide a place where people can go and can get resources and things without being bombarded with news and whatnot. And for the most part, I'm sticking with that here on the podcast as well. However, I really feel called to say something today, and that is that we are all still in the middle of this collective trauma. Some people are feeling it more than others, but in general, worldwide, we are all still in this trauma right now. And I see some well-meaning people, especially some well-meaning motivational people that maybe I don't care for that much to begin with, but anyway, saying and telling people about changing their perspective, and that if we change how we feel about a situation, it's going to make it better, and all of these things. And while that might be true in regular life, we are not living in any type of regular life that we have experienced before in our lifetimes. It feels a little bit weird to me as the person who is certified in stress management and stress resiliency, the person who has trauma-informed certifications, who is doing more courses next week, who is very, very passionate about being trauma sensitive, that so many people now feel that they have, the expertise to consult others or advise others on how they should or should not be reacting during this time. And again, I know that this is all coming from a place of care and they're trying to be helpful, but what a lot of these people don't realize is it's not helpful at all. In fact, it's the opposite of helpful. There's so many things I want to talk about, but I want to also keep this relatively short and sweet. I've seen a lot of articles go around, and I was actually going to write a blog post about this, but as it turns out, I have too many things on the go and I just don't have the time for it. You've probably seen the memes of we're all out in a storm, but some of us are in better boats than others. Some of us are in a rubber dinghy. Some are in $1 million yachts. Like, how you're experiencing life during this situation really differs person to person, and you can't really or at all compare your experience to someone else's. And in the same way, you can't tell a person who is going through a trauma, who has a mental health issue perhaps, or is developing one from this trauma, that they just have to change their perspective. Just change your perspective. Just look on the bright side. You can't do that the same way you can't tell someone with a broken leg, oh, just ignore the pain, it's fine. We can start to work on those things, work on overcoming pain from physical, emotional trauma after the trauma has stopped, but I really don't feel like we can do it while the trauma is still actively happening. Now, there are some people out there that 100% might just be getting into one of those spirals downward of negativity, and turning things around in their mind will help them spiral back out. That is an absolute true thing, and that can work for some people right now. It's not going to work for everybody, and it just really bothers me and upsets me even when I see someone suggesting that just change your perspective and you'll be fine. Like, you don't know what that person, the person who is reading that, you don't know what they are experiencing. Maybe the person writing it is coming from, well, they're absolutely coming from a well-meaning place, but they're sitting at home, they're safe, they have their children home, maybe nobody in their house is an essential worker, perhaps they are independently wealthy and don't have to worry about finances or anything like that, whereas somebody else who is reading it, maybe they are an ER nurse and haven't seen their child in 2 months. Maybe they are sick themselves. Like, there's so many things that could be going on that you can't just tell somebody to change their perspective. And if you're listening to this and you think maybe I'm talking about you, I can absolutely guarantee that I am not, because the people that I'm talking about would never be listening to this. They don't know I exist. But if you have maybe said something about people changing their perspective or looking on the bright side of things, that's cool. I have shared a number of times some of the positives that have come out of this. Me being able to take courses that I would otherwise have had to travel to the US or to Toronto. Not only the cost of the course itself, but the travel fees and the time it would take away from my work, and being able to do some virtual conferences and some different things like that have been really wonderful. There have been wonderful things that have come from this terrible time. It's one thing to share things that you are happy about that have been working good for you. I mean, I shared when people sent me a whole bunch of pink peppermints and people were delighted. Like, it had nothing to do with them at all. It didn't make anything in the world any better. But to see that people had taken the time to send me pink peppermints when I ran out, I had a whole bunch of people comment and send me messages saying thank you for sharing that, because it was nice to have a little bit of brightness in my day. Like, we're just looking for little things. So it's okay to be positive. It's okay to share your perspective and to try to be a little bright light in the lives of others. Be funny, ridiculous, whatever it might be, if you feel up to it. Just don't assume or suggest that other people can do what you are doing just because you are doing it. I've been really pretty productive during this time. I don't expect anybody else to be productive. Just because I feel okay doing things and I need to be doing things to keep my sanity, if I just sat around, I would go down that negativity spiral. I need to be doing things. I don't assume other people do. I think if you have spent the last 8 weeks cuddled up on the couch, crying while watching the same show over and over on repeat, if that is what is helping you cope right now, then that is just fine. At some point, you are going to have to get up off of the couch, but that time might not be here yet. Like, whatever you need to do to self-soothe and to get you through this situation, that's all we're asking for right now. That's all I'm asking for, is for you to do what you need to do to get through this. I don't care if your perspective is negative or if it's positive. I don't care if you're productive or completely unproductive. I would like you to feed yourself. I would like you to wash occasionally, and I would like you to sleep. It'd be good if you went outside now and again. But other than that, however you get through this is up to you, and don't let the memes or the posts on Instagram, social media, wherever, make you feel like you have to be doing more, or you should be doing something different, or you should be cheerful all the time. It's perfectly normal to cry for no reason right now. It's perfectly normal to feel like you've made meals for the last 7,000 days in a row. It's perfectly normal if you want to divorce your whole family because you're tired of being stuck home with them. These are all perfectly normal. So just give yourself a little extra grace. And if you're sharing your own story, just try to keep privilege in perspective. I know I'm very privileged. I've been able to stay at home. I've been able to continue with work. I've been able to stay safe and out of stores. That is not the case for a lot of people. And so I try not to talk too much about it, because just because it's my reality doesn't mean that it's other people's reality. And I think that's why I feel so called to try to be useful in this time, because I am okay, and I know others aren't. And if I can be a vessel or a source for something that helps them get through it, then that's what I'm going to do. Anyway, before I go on any more of a tangent, I'm going to wrap up today's episode. I hope you're doing all right. I hope you're doing well. Next week, we're going to put this pandemic talk on the back burner, but I did want to get this off of my chest. So thank you so much for tuning in. If you do want to hang out with me, you can always check out my free Facebook group. It's the Wellness Simplified Facebook community. The link is in my description below, and you can always find me on Instagram and Twitter, I think it was called, at Suzi Confesses. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will talk to you next week. Bye.